Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow Room. Yay! And we are working our way backwards through the P's. And as I said a million times, we are in the nether regions of the P's. All these strange little things that I stuck in places. And one of them is Peterson or Peterson. And, Peterson or Peterson could be spelled P-E-T, and then after that, anything can happen. You can have multiple consonants. It can end with an O-N or an E-N. Well, here's a Peterson with an E-N. I mean, who this guy was, David Peterson. He was a composer. He lived in well, I don't know if he lived in Amsterdam, but he published in 1683 something called Speelstukken, or, music that you play, a bunch of sonatas, little tiny sonata-like things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, here are 9 of them in here. There are actually more, at least they start with sonata number 12, so I assume there are more of them, with the Rare Fruits Council, which tells you nothing, doesn't it? Don't you love the way they come up with names for these things? The Jelly Bellies. Yeah, it's a viol consort, obviously. Well, anyway, so the Rare Fruits Council consists of a violin, a viola da gamba, a cello, an arch lute, an organ, and a harpsichord. And, this is kind of like, if you like Bieber and Schmelzer and those people, then you're going to like this. It's in that style, assuming you could find it, assuming it still exists. It's on Ovidis. Remember Ovidis Valois, which is now Naive or something like that? I don't know what happened to all these things. I really do. Ovidis Astray. The French labels always, they had all these names, and they were absorbed and reabsorbed and apportioned differently, and they added names and subtracted names. I never knew what the hell was going on with French classical labels, the independent ones. So here we have Ovidis Astray. It's a lovely disc. It's very well recorded. I have nothing else by this guy. I know nothing about him other than what's in the little bookie, the little booklet here. So, it's viol music of its time, violin and viol music, consort music, more or less. And, 1683 is nice and early for you early music people. So that's sort of there. I mean, it's here. And I can't say that I play a lot of it or could describe it to you. If I heard you doing it on a drop the needle exam, I would never be able to say, oh, that's David Peterson, obviously. No, not going to happen. And I pride myself on having quite the memory when it comes to these things, but some of this stuff, it's impossible. You only have one disc in a particular style that lots of people were doing. Then we've got, Oscar Peterson. Yay! The great Canadian jazz pianist, known by, called by Duke Ellington the Maharaja of the piano. He made hundreds of recordings, both solo and in ensembles and whatnot. And I have more of his stuff somewhere, I'm sure. I have another box of it. But this is what I have down here. Exclusively for my friends. These are solo albums. It's an edition of 4 CDs capturing the legendary private concerts originally released on 6 LPs Oscar Peterson gave at the villa of record producer Hans-Georg Brunner-Schwer at Villingen, Germany, recorded between 1963 and 1968. They feature some rare piano solo performances as well as high-caliber trio playing with Sam Jones and Ray Brown, Bobby Durham and Ed Thigpen and Lewis Hayes on bass and drums respectively. Yeah, this is really a wonderful set. I mean, it's a classic set, and jazz piano is a whole world that I only skate over on the surface. I really do, because I think it's amazing and wonderful, but I don't know as much about it as I wish I did, and so often the case, isn't it? You can't do everything, you can't know everything. There's no way, and so I listened to this actually recently, just a few months ago. I was playing with some of these tunes. They're wonderful tunes. It's At Long Last Love, I've Got a Crush on You, A Foggy Day, Like Someone in Love, On a Clear Day, You Can See Forever, I'm in the Mood for Love, Simply Because You're Near Me. Well, it doesn't sound like that. No, not a bit. Summertime, and Who Can I Turn To, and Quiet Nights, and When Lights Are Low, and let's see, there's some medleys here. And Alice in Wonderland, well, that's interesting. In a Mellow Tone, remember that? Someone to Watch Over Me, Perdido, Body and Soul, Bye Bye Blackbird, some really, Lulu's back in town. Oh gosh, that's fun. That's really fun. 10, Take the A Train is the last number here. Little Girl Blue. Fantastic arrangements by musicians of real genius. And I always feel regret about what I don't know, what I haven't had time to really get into. And this reminds me that, keeps you humble. There's so much more, always so much more. And last but not least, well, this is a story. Peter, Paul, and Mary. Yay! Oh God, I love Peter, Paul, and Mary. This was my childhood. Let me tell you the place that Peter, Paul, and Mary has in my life, at the risk of being incredibly embarrassing and, doing something that falls into the category of too much information. But I was, little kids, they have like security blankets, and some kids suck their thumbs and do other things. Well, I was a thumb sucker. I was. My brother had a security blanket. Sorry, I didn't mean to let that information out. Anyway, I used to suck my thumb. And because I used to suck my thumb, it developed like a sore, which we called in the family a worse and worse, because the more I sucked it, the worse it got. It got worse and worse. And my parents took me to the doctor, see what we could do about this thing. And at one point, I just always loved music. I was enraptured by music ever since I was 3 years old. I must have been about 3 or 4 years old. I mean, I couldn't have been much more than 3 or 4 at this point in my life. And my father made a deal with me. He said, I loved Peter, Paul, and Mary. I loved Lemon Tree, particularly Lemon Tree, very pretty. And if I had a hammer, where have all the flowers gone? I mean, this train, remember 500 miles? These songs are great, these folk songs and things. So this is around the campfire. This is a compilation. They're who are they? Peter Yarrow, Mary Travers, and Paul something or other. I keep forgetting what his last name was. Newlin or Newley or something like that. Wait a minute, I'll tell you what his name was. So the bottom line with this story, Peter Yarrow, Stuckey, that's it. Noel, Paul, Stuckey, that's who they were. So I thought they were just fantastic. And they were making, there's often recordings would come out and the new one was coming out. And my father said to me, if you stop sucking your thumb, I will buy you the latest Peter, Paul, and Mary record. And that was my first ever record. And I agreed. I said, yes, absolutely. And he bought me the record. In that moment, I stopped sucking my thumb and never did it again. Never thought about it at all. And everyone was marveling that I had the willpower as a 3-year-old or whatever to actually do that and keep my end of the bargain. But I did. And you can ask my mother. She's commenting periodically. She'll testify that I stopped sucking my thumb in exchange for this, for this Peter, Paul, and Mary record. It was wonderful. And from that point on, from the time I literally was that age, like 3 or 4 years old, I collected records. I did. That's the truth. It's the God's honest truth. And I have these as a warm memento of my very happy childhood exploring and getting to know music of all kinds. I mean, I never distinguished between what was classical and what wasn't. I mean, I got into classical a bit later, but it was all just dazzling to me. And I remember everything about that, everything about the record, everything about the songs on the record, everything about the deal I made with Dad, the whole thing. And my first exposure to my music, the idea that I had choice and that I could listen to what I wanted to, and I could listen to all this stuff and find out what I liked. And it was, oh my God, I was a kid in a candy store. I only discovered candy stores later, unfortunately. But there you go, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And with that, keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.